you've been to some fireplaces. It's hard to carry on when you feel all alone. Now I've swung back down again. It's worse than it was before. If I had seen such riches, I could live with being poor. Oh, sit down, oh, sit down, oh, sit down. Sit down next to me. Sit down, 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 down. Sympathy.
Evening everyone, back again, twice tonight. So we're going to have a little chat about the history of not only the Arsenal firms, but the other firms. And first of all, disclaimer, I've had people call me and say that, yeah, Jez was part of the firm. No, I was not. I was never, ever part of any of the firms. I knew a lot of them, saw them, never got involved deliberately, because unfortunately sometimes it came on you, but not intentionally. So let's get into this. How did it all start back in the day? Basically, football violence came about in the late 60s. A lot of people blame it on the fact that the mods and rockers in the 60s and all that had sort of died out, but a lot of angry young men still wanted to have a kick off and a punch up and whatever. And well, I don't know how true that is, but it certainly started around 68, 69. And the clubs didn't really have firms then. It was just punch ups here and there and whatever and everything. It was all a bit whatever. But it soon moved on very, very quickly to around 69, 70. And the firms started really in the Midlands and north of the country, mainly because there was a lot of very angry young men where unemployment was pretty rife. And it wasn't just young men, it was people in their 30s, 40s that were very frustrated, and they just weren't earning money. And so their weekend release was going to football and having a good kick-off. And that started pretty much as it was up in the Midlands and the north of England. It quickly spread, basically. It quickly spread as south of the country teams were going up to play the likes of Man United, the likes of Newcastle, and other teams. So these London teams are like getting a little bit fed up of going up there and getting abused and getting pissed off and getting attacked and everything. So it spread. It basically spread. And so firms were starting to turn up in London, and not just London, out in Wales, out on the south coast. And it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. And the fact, as it got into the early 70s, with the 3-day working week, where strikes were being held, power cuts were being held all the time. I remember as a kid myself, where power cuts were coming in, and you'd sit in the evening with candles, because the electricity would be cut off at a certain time of an evening, usually about 7 o'clock, after people had cooked their tea, the power would be cut off. So that was a problem. That was a problem. People were getting seriously more and more frustrated. So the football on a Saturday, because it was always on a Saturday back then, became naughty. It became naughty. And firms started to appear because Arsenal, no, not just Arsenal, but other teams were going north, south, north, south, north, south. One of the particularly naughty problems was on the M1. Blue Boar Services, Watford Gap. It was always a kick-off point. Teams coming south, southern teams going north. There's a crossover on the M1, Bridges. Yeah. And we'll get back into that a little bit later because I can tell you a few stories about that. So, how did it come about? These firms were starting to come around, yeah, and it was getting a little bit nasty. Football was seriously wrong at that point in time. So I'm going to name you a few of the firms that I came across personally in my days. One of them, relentless, the West Ham intercity firm, the ICF. Millwall, originally called the F Troop, back in my time, and then became the Bushwhackers. Spurs, we all know that one, the Yid Army. Chelsea's relentless head hunters. Infamous nightmare. But another awful place you didn't want to go in the day was Man United with the Red Army. Seriously. But a group you didn't want to make and didn't want to get involved with was the Port Vale Lunatic Fringe. We met them 2 occasions at the services at the Blue Boar. Destroyed our minibus on the 2nd occasion. The Cardiff Soul Crew, nightmare. The Swansea Jacks, nightmare. Leeds, the service crew. Well, now, you know, we're getting into some serious bother. The Wolves Army, Subway Army, or they also was known as the Yam Yams. The Yam Yams. Don't know why, but one of them, also the worst, was the Naughty 40, the Stoke crew. Going up to Stoke was never a good day out. Newcastle, the Gremlins. Hull City, Psychos. Now, I will tell you a story about them if I remember to tell you. Now, Arsenal had a crew called, in the early days, they were called the Herd. They're still around. They are still around. They haven't gone away. They're just not big out there. Just not big out there. They turn up. And I actually had a phone call today with one of the original founders of the Herd. And yeah, he's an old guy now. But it just shows that they've never gone away. And the fact is that certain people today think this hasn't gone to bed. And it's still around. As young head Letty says, the Zulus, yeah, the Birmingham City Zulus, man, they're a bloody nightmare. But what I want to try and break this down. I want to try and break this down into how it happened. My experiences, how it all could go wrong. And as I said, I was never part of any of them, but I knew many of them. Yeah. Question for later, just how on a match day, if you needed to avoid the firms, could you identify them? Were they easy to spot? All day, mate. Easy, easy, easy. You always knew who they were. You always knew who they were. There's never a question about who they were. You could tell them coming on. You could. It was. How can I describe it? You'd get a hush. You get a hush, and if you were behind your firm, right, you'd get the call. You'd get that call would come up, and you knew, oh shit, this is going to go all the wrong way. Now, the herd, which was first formed in the 70s, or so, they had a call called the E.I.E. Now, I've asked many people, what does that really actually mean? There's so many different versions of it. There is. Some say it means everyone is evil. The other one that's commonly stated is that an Arsenal member of that firm was eating, well, I don't believe this at all, was eating a pie, and he said, E.I.E, meaning here they are, meaning there's an away firm coming at them. And so I'm not sure about any of them. I don't know. I really don't know. I've asked many, many people, and nobody can actually give me the answer. But that was their call. That was the E.I.E. As soon as you heard that, if you were going to a game and you were behind them or close to them, and you heard that call, you knew it was coming on. You knew it. I remember being at Hull City. Their firm was called the Psychos. And we parked up a long way from the ground. And every street corner, and it's a shithole area in Hull City, I won't lie, right? They were everywhere. And we were walking quite nonchalantly away, just going to the ground. We weren't doing no colours, fuck all, we were just going. And all of a sudden, out of this road to our right came out the firm. And we're like, oh, fuck me. And they just came straight in front of us, 60 or 70 of them. Wow. And it was just carnage. And there was everything going down, bottles, everything. It was just bottles full of piss. It was just an absolute nightmare. And it was just like, because it was back streets, there was no police. You have to remember, back in time, the police were so unorganised. So unorganised. They didn't know what the hell was hitting them most of the time. Seriously. And it went so wrong in so many ways. And the fans basically were left open for cannon fodder. And the fact is that I got lucky on many, many occasions because I was quick at running. And yeah, I'm not a coward, but I didn't want to get my head kicked in. Seriously. But the fact is, the certain firms were nasty, nasty bastards. Liverpool, you didn't want to get mixed up with them because they had this horrible way of slashing people with double Stanley blades. They'd slash you, and because there were two blades in one knife, very hard to stitch you up. Birmingham, right? Birmingham, the Zulus had this fascination, right, of slicing you up round here, giving you the Joker smile. Yeah, that was their thing. There is also one crew, the Leeds service crew, who were an absolute nightmare. Was the fact they'd tattoo you on your foreskin, forehead, right? They'd tattoo you on your forehead. Yeah, they'd tattoo. You've been visited, and you'd live that the rest of your life. I mean, that is how serious it got back in the day. It was awful. So, what was the herd all about? Well, the herd was formed basically early 70s. They were formed basically because when away teams were coming to Arsenal, there was continual battles, and they got fed up with the fact that away teams were trying to get in the North Bank, obviously Arsenal's home end, and it was always the goal of any away firm was to take the away end. So that basically this came about, and a guy called Johnny Hay thought, well, he was the lead, he was the head boy, top boy of Arsenal, the herd. How that name came about, I've never been able to find out. But he was the top boy. He basically was there, clock end. You say you had the herd in the clock end and you had them in the North Bank. And I'll come into this in a little bit. So the herd were mainly active in the early 70s, 80s, up until around the 90s. And then it became the Gooners. So it was a transition time, basically, for what Arsenal, the firm, was. Now, the herd were quite notorious. Their reputation didn't go unnoticed. They actually were recognised as being pretty naughty, to the point where they took the shed end at Chelsea on numerous occasions, which Chelsea fans to this day will still deny, but there is actually footage of it. And they held their own when the E.I.E, Tottenham, of course, came to Arsenal. Major kickoffs, major. I mean, I can remember watching them. I can remember watching what went down, and it was seriously bad news. The Assemble says old pickpockets used that same call to tell each other police were around. Didn't realise they used it at football. What you talk about the E.I.E? Yeah, I mean it was. Yeah, I mean that was their war cry. That was the war cry. But let's get deep into this. So the herd had come about, right? They were a proper naughty lot of boys. You had Johnny Hay, Johnny Hoy, I beg your pardon, Sheepskin Steve, Hendon Josh, they were there. And it went on and it went on and it went on. And at away games, they would always get involved. But the problem was sometimes when you go into away games, you may not want to get involved. I didn't want to get involved, nor does a lot of my mates. But sadly, you're in the wrong place at the wrong bleeding time, and it came on you. And what do? You don't run. You don't run. You have to stay with it. It was what it was. Oregon going to the Chelsea Green. Is that yeah? But the fact is that it was a nightmare time. Seriously, I mean, I still remember horrible things. That's what's going on. Anthony, mate, I can't do anything about the adverts, man. Seriously, I can't. It's the new YouTube thing, man. Sorry, I'd love to be able to do something. I can't. It's the same on every other channel, bro. I can't do anything about it, man. It seems to hit certain people and others, not others. I don't know, but it is. I'm sorry, man. Can't help it. Stephen says I was in a weigh-ins with 50p pieces with razor blades either side thrown at us. At least we could see the darts coming. Well, yeah, it was a tough time. It was awful. I mean, it was bottles of piss thrown at you. Yeah. Long edge, yeah, it's foreskin. Oh, that's the video demonetized. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it happens all the time, bro. Ha. Udro. Yeah, class, man. The times were like a totally different time in football. Nothing like it was now. The West Ham firm and Millwall firm seem to be the most ruthless. Yeah, that's a good segue, man. So the intercity firm, West Ham, right, and the F Troop, the original F Troop, later called the Bushwhackers. Now, bit of history here, bit of history for you here. Why do they hate each other so much? Well, apparently, back in 1906, there was an industrial strike at the docks in London, where you had a lot of people from the area around Millwall, Bermondsey, all around there, and they were all on strike. But apparently, I may get this round the wrong way, so do excuse me. West Ham had a lot of also people working at the docks who lived in Bermondsey, also lived in the Elephant and Castle, etc., etc., etc. One of them, whether it was Millwall or West Ham, I can't remember, decided to break the picket line. And there was such upset about it that that's where it stemmed from in 1906. And when West Ham and Millwall played each other in 1906, there was terrible violence. Bit like the one where Arsenal played a game at the Manor Ground in 1892, and the Arsenal fans kicked off because they believed they had been cheated in a game by the referee. But long time ago. Who knows? Who knows? Mama Flossie says the leader of the Newcastle Gremlins was a solicitor. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, Mama. Not all of these people were just thugs. Some of these people were very intelligent people. Seriously, I mean, I know people that were in the in the Gooners. They were, upright people, man. Seriously. Sam says, I've always been really interested to learn about the herd, but it's hard to get any information. Thanks for this. Hope you're well. Well, yeah, the thing is with the herd, they're still about, but they don't put it out there. The one thing you have to respect about the herd, right, is they never went on TV. They never went to write books. They never wanted fame or fortune. They were true ones. True ones. And that's what it was about at Arsenal. And the fact is, the herd were very well respected amongst, how can you put it, the other firms, I suppose is the only way you can put it. So let's have a little chat about the F Troop Millwall. Absolutely relentless firm. Absolutely worst. One of the worst I've ever come across in my life. Went down there to the old den at New Cross, and I have to tell you, that was a bad day out. It was, I believe, an FA Cup game, and it was not good. Seriously, not good. But the fact is, got out of there in one piece, luckily. The thing is, walking around that ground, it's not just the fans, it's the actual neighbourhood, man. You got people throwing bottles out the window full of piss at you. And these are women. These are women. That's how it is around there. And, you know, but you had to get through it. Now, the old den, the old den, was a nightmare to get into. It was like walking through somebody's garden gate. So you're outside, right? You've got all of that lot around you, and you're trying to get through one little door. So you've got all kinds of shit coming on you. All kinds of crap. And it was not a good time. Not a good time at all. And the F Troop, as they were back in the 80s, became like, they then became the Bushwhackers. I don't know why. But at the same time, when they had the F Troop, they also had the halfway liners, which was their junior, like 14, 15-year-olds. Yeah. So they had it all mixed up. So wherever you went around Millwall for a game, you had kids eyeballing, and they'd be reporting back down a string, like, you know, like they didn't have mobile phones back then, but they'd be reporting down round the corners. Oh, like this lot's coming down, this lot's coming down. So you go around the corner, all of a sudden you got like 30 fucking Millwall in front of your face. Now, the thing is, not all of us were violent people. I wasn't. Didn't want any of it. But when you were there, and behind you, up round the corner, you suddenly hear E.I.E. E.I.E. You're like, oh, fuck me, here we go. And you've got like 120, 130 of that lot, the firm, coming down the road. You're like, shit, this is coming on us now, big time. And it was like, oh, God, here we go. And you just literally tried to get out of the way, if you want to know what I mean. But that is how it was. I mean, going to away days back then with the firms was, if you didn't have your wits about you, right, you were in the shit, because you had to know what was going to come on. If you didn't know the area, which invariably we none of us did, but you had to research it. Yeah, you had to get a map of the area, a street map, whatever, look it up, find out where you're going to park up, if you're going to walk to the ground on your own. Because if you're going to walk, if you drove to a ground, right, in your little minibus, right, you're not going to get a police escort. Yeah, So you've got to park it up and find your way. Classic case in point, right? Hull City, their firm was called the Psychos. I've mentioned this story before. I have mentioned this story before, right? Walking up round, we parked half a mile from the ground. We thought we'd be like incognito, no colours, no scarves, nothing. The only worry you've got is if you get questioned, because if you get questioned, they know your voice, and then you're in trouble. So we parked up, walked out, went round, and every single street corner going to that ground was somebody. Could be a 14-year-old, could have been an 18-year-old, could have been God knows who. But at the end of the day, we knew we were in it. We thought, oh shit, here we go. So we eventually got about a street away from Hull City's ground. It's an FA Cup game. And these fellas all just came up and they were like giving it all the chat. And we were like, yeah, you know, whatever, you know. Yeah. And they knew who we were. But thankfully for us, right, just over there, there's a crossroads, yeah, just over there was, at the time, the Gooners. The name had changed to the Gooners. And these fellas looked across and they thought, fuck that, there's about 120 of them. Police were there. They were cordoned, but they knew, the police knew they couldn't hold all that lot back if it went off. And these guys just basically fucked off, knowing. But in that game, it all went tits up for Hull. Arsenal won, I think. I can't remember. I think it was 2-0. But coming out of there, oh my days. Because we were that stupid, we'd parked a while away, right? We had to walk back out through the streets. I remember chatting to Hendon Josh, and he said to us, you fucking wankers, you're going to get fucked off because we've got to go back that way and you've got to go that way. And we're like, bad. Anyway, we got lucky because the police split up the fans over there and they held back the Arsenal fans here. And we went with the Arsenal fans up there, round the corner, and we got absolutely lucky. Only simply because in my pocket of my jacket, had a map of Hull City ground. Sorry, the city. So we could nick down here, there, and everywhere. And we got in, we fucked off. Otherwise, we would have been done bad because they were looking out big time. Now, talking about things like the West Ham, the ICF, the top boys that I remember, Bill Gardner back in the day, Cass. Everybody's watched the classic film of Cass, who became the top boy at the ICF. But there's all kinds of different things that can be talked about. The fact that the herd transgressed I don't know why they actually transgressed to the Gooners. Now, the one point I wanted to make about this show, right? This is the one point, yeah. Everybody nowadays likes to call themselves a Gooner. A Gooner. You're a Gooner. Let me just say this one thing. If you'd called yourself a Gooner back in them days, you would have got a serious fucking slap. If you weren't part of the firm, you did never, ever, ever dare to call yourself a Gooner. If you weren't part of that, you're in shit, man. But everybody now thinks they've got the right to call themselves a fucking Gooner. Now, how did that name come about? How did the name Gooner come about? Well, the truth of the matter is, what it was about, when Arsenal were going away with the firm, a few firms called them Goons, 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 Goons. And it was a piss take of the name of the Gunners. And if you don't know, back in that time, around the early, mid 70s, you had the Gooners. It was the Goon Show. So everybody was taking the piss out of them. So they became known as the Goons, the Goons, the Goons. So it became the Gooners, the Gooners, the Gooners. And that became adopted. That became adopted by the Arsenal firm. Right? So the likes of Johnny E.I.E, who was the top boy in the herd, who sort of disappeared out of it, right? He I don't know, got fed up with it. I don't know, whatever happened, but he went. So in came a new top boy, Dainton Connell. I met Dainton many, many times. He also became known as Denton the Bear Connell. Big, he's a big black guy, lovely fella. He wasn't actually particularly violent. He was actually a nice guy. But he was sort of the general, if you like, of the Gooners, and that is where it all sort of got mixed up, and the Gooners became bigger. So you had the Gooners in the clock end, and you had the Gooners in the North Bank. Now, this is where things started to get wrong. Okay, started to get wrong here. It's interesting that a lot of young people call themselves Gooners. Now, if you really knew what it meant, you would never dare call yourself that. Because back in the day, you would have got a fucking punch around the head. Seriously. But that's in the past. So let's have a little look at how things went with the Gooners back in time. I'm going to tell you some of my stories of how it came upon me. So the E.I.E, well, everybody says every idiot enjoys is what it means. I don't know. I mean, I've no idea. It's just what I'm told, but it is what it is. So Highbury, I was this game. Highbury 1988 was the infamous fight with Millwall. All right. The F Troop basically wanted to take the North Bank. That was the aim of any firm. They wanted to take the home end. If you're an away firm, right? If you were going away, the aim was to take the home team's end so you can notch it up, right? That's what it was about. So 1988, Millwall, right, have come with the F Troop to Highbury. It was one of the worst setups I've ever seen at Arsenal. It was shocking. 41 Millwall were arrested. 24 Arsenal were arrested. There was 10,000 Millwall. It's an FA Cup game. 10,000 in the clock in. 2,000 Millwall got in the North Bank. And it was just unbelievable scrapping. The police could not handle it. There's not enough police to handle it, right? They just could not handle it. It was just, the police tried to segregate them up in the top left corner as you look at the pitch. There was all kinds of carnage. The fighting it kept going on and on. But the only other thing is, the Millwall were in the east and west stands, and they weren't just fighting like Arsenal. They were bashing up elderly people, right? People in their 60s. They were bashing them up. It's an absolute bloody disgrace. Absolute disgrace. And the injuries out of that game, I can only quote you of injuries to fans. I can only quote you injuries to the firm, Arsenal firm, right? There were apparently 24 injured, 2 stabbed by the Millwall. Millwall had 41 arrested, and I think, if I remember rightly, 10 of them were hospitalised by the fighting in the North Bank. The problem is, back then, the police didn't know how to segregate and handle it. And it wasn't long later, if you think about this, right? I'm talking here. Sorry, I'm talking just a year before, right? 87. Sorry, a year later, 89, 88. The horrendous things that happened at Hillsborough, because the police were so unable to deal with this situation. They were terrible. And that was one of the worst displays of violence I've ever seen at Highbury. And I mean, I've been away to a lot of games, but that was shocking, because they were coming from the clock end, right, down through the east and west lower, and trying to get in with the other 2,000 in the North Bank, and the police couldn't deal with it, didn't have enough stewards. It was madness, man. Madness. So that was 88. Let's move on to another awful story, right? Not all of the herd at the time, who then became the Gooners, were that bad. So in 1982, I was in the North Bank. Yeah. It was Arsenal West Ham. The ICF came in and basically took the North Bank as they thought. The fighting was unrelentless. The game was stopped twice because of pitch invasion. An Arsenal fan got stabbed and died on the steps up to the North Bank. It was unbelievable. Excuse me. Some of the worst, again, at Highbury. The other one, which was shocking, was Arsenal against Galatasaray in Copenhagen. 2000, the European Cup, and that was terrible. Terrible. Innocent bystanders, kids, women, children, nothing to do with the football. Nothing. It was shocking. Shop windows being smashed in, bars, chairs being thrown around, stabbings. Arsenal had 24 arrested. Yeah. And those scenes were just disgraceful, man. I was not proud. I was not proud to be an Arsenal fan. I've been to two couple of cup finals. One and then the UEFA Cup final. I vowed and declared after that I'd never go again. Because it was just a disgrace. You're there for a party. You're there to enjoy yourself, man. But no. I was embarrassed by the Arsenal fans on that night. People stabbed, injured, innocent people injured for no fault of their own. 54 arrested. 54 Arsenal fans arrested. Disgrace. Disgrace. But that was the mentality at times of, I don't know. I just think sometimes you just, is it worth it really? What does it prove? What does it get you? Bit of like bragging rights, yeah. Another time, we'll come to this one in a minute. We'll come to this one, right? A couple of away games that was what it was. But yeah, okay. So I've mentioned some of the firms. Stokes, Naughty 40. We got caught out up there once. Got caught by twice. The Lunatic Fringe, Port Vale, caught by them twice at bloody Blue Ball. They were absolute fuckers, that lot. But yeah, let's go on. So we talked about what happened. We've talked about bad times, but I just don't get what happened. Comment here, great info, Jez. My dad used to travel with United away in the 70s, 80s, and it was horrendous. Yeah, it was. You had to be so aware of yourself. Seriously, you had to be so aware, or you would be in serious shit, man. Excuse me. Carl says, Oregon Gooners took over the schools here, man. Kids glorifying it. I remember even as a youth asking everyone, like in Scarface, did you see the ending? Don't know what that's about. I've missed something there. So before we wind this up, I think I'll try to cover everything about my experiences I mean, I could go. I'm not being funny. I could go on for hours and hours and bore the shit out of you about it all. Um, there were times when it was seriously scary. Seriously, man. Seriously. I remember we went to Cardiff, FA Cup, fourth round, and the Soul Crew, the Cardiff Soul Crew, they were a proper nightmare firm. Man United, Red Army, going up there the numerous times. It is always a problem. Always a problem. You always knew there was going to be issues. Liverpool, Anfield, man, Jesus Christ. Chelsea, away, headhunters. Now, the thing is about the headhunters, this is a funny thing, right? When they were called the Shed Boys, right, when they had the old infamous shed end, which was it was their home end, it was a wooden shed, right? Arsenal took that so many times and they tried to blag it that Arsenal only took it a couple of times because they always took the clock end. Bollocks. Never did, never happened. Never happened. Arsenal, the herd at the time, used to take that all the time. All the time. I was never there in that part of the ground, but I can remember bloody watching it, and it was seriously crap. You'd have about 1,000 Arsenal get in the shed, and they'd never get them out. Carl says, thanks, mate, for your super chat. This could be a 6-hour stream. Never boring, mate. Absolutely appreciate the stories. Thank you, man. Thanks for that. Yeah, I could go for hours about some of the history of, some of the experiences I've been around. Watched the Football Factory class movie. Oregon Gooner. That's all bullshit, man. It was never like that. I can tell you. It was never, ever, ever like that. Never. John Ray, thanks for sharing your memories and history. Really enjoyed the show. Thank you, man. Thank you. Longhead Yetis Cave. We had the one ring to rule them all. Now you're talking about bloody Tolkien now, man. What are you talking about? You're talking about bloody Bilbo and Frodo. Oregon Gooner, yeah. Anyway, right, before we wrap this up, I've told you a couple of my stories. I'm going to tell you the last one. My last proper bad experience. I was coming home 2010, Saturday afternoon, travelled from Arsenal Tube down to Victoria, got the train to come home, and I was a prick, to be honest. It was a home game. We played, I think it was Fulham, I might be wrong, can't remember. I had underneath my jacket, it was December, I had a jacket on, an Arsenal shirt. But, stupidly, I hadn't taken my scarf off. Now, I hadn't researched what was going down, who's playing where, what's going on. So we get to East Croydon Station, right? And on come about 11 Palace fans, right? So I'm like sat there, I'm on my own, I've got nobody else with me. And they're all about 18, 20, something like that. And they're like, oh, hello, got a gunner. And I'm like, oh, fuck me, here we go. And the Palace firm always go, yagga, 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 big mouth. Yagga, yagga, big mouth, ducks talk. Hush. Right? That's their way. So I'm thinking, oh, fuck this. I'm like, I said, look, guys, I'm on my own. 11-1's not really a fair fight, is it? Come on. And this young fella with his, blueberry cap and his Stone Island jacket and all that, giving it all the big large. Yeah, I used to be with the fucking ICF, mate. You know what I mean? And I was like, fuck this. I'm in shit now. Anyway, doors are shut. Other stalls down there are shut. And this fella has come up and he must be roughly around my age. Big fucking lump of a fella. And he's gone to these Crystal Palace, because if you don't know where East Croydon, you've got East Croydon, up the road, you've got Selhurst Park. See, there's a train you can get to East Croydon. And this fella's just turned around to these kids and said, they're not kids, but he just turned around and said, wait, shut the fuck up, leave me on his own. He's on his own. 11 to 1 ain't fair, is it? Would you be proud of yourself if you kick the fuck out of a gunner when he's on his own? And I was like, who the fuck's this? And these kids just like, well, not kids, but you know what I mean, just fucked off. And this bloke come and sat down in front of me, and he was a Palace fan. And I said, right, mate, thanks for that. And he went, yeah, that's all right, mate. I don't believe in unfair fights. And I went, yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And he said, you've been around Arsenal for a while, haven't you? I went, yeah, a while, mate. And he went, yeah, fair play, son. I went, calling me son? And I was like, right, okay, fair enough. I didn't question it. And he went, I'm one of the firm. Don't worry about Palace. Don't worry. I'm one of them. And that lot know me, and what I say, they shut the fuck up. So you're all right, mate. All right. He said, how far are you going? I said, well, I'm going down to my town. He went, oh, fair enough. And he said, unfortunately, mate, nowadays there's too many little fucking wankers in these football clubs that think they're the big tough boys, and they ain't. He said, I'm sure you've seen it in your time, haven't you? And I went, you are? Yeah, I have, mate. And he went, yeah, I'm sure you have. And he said, right, well, I've got to get off in 3 stations' time. So good luck, mate. And hope we meet again. I went, thank you, mate. Shook hands. Sat there. He got his paper out. Sat there, read that. He got to Reigate station and fucked off. I don't know I've no idea who that bloke was. But I tell you what, if he hadn't turned up, I'd have been in deep fucking shit. Seriously. 11 of them on my own, mate. No chance. Absolutely fucking no chance. But this fella, he was obviously known to them. He's obviously part of the crew at Palace. But that's how it was. And that was my last situation. It was my fault. I was stupid. Right? I was stupid. I should have taken my bloody scarf off, hidden it somewhere. I had a big jacket on. I could have hidden my shirt. But I didn't research my journey home. I didn't realise Palace were at home. So I knew if I'd known that, I knew I'd encounter them on the train. And, well, there you go. That's how it works. But, guys, ladies, thanks for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. Bit of education. Great. Noah says, great stuff, Jez. R.I.P. the Bear. Yeah, from all the stories I hear, he was the top boy in the 80s. Yes, he was, mate. Denton, Connell, Denton, the Bear. Sadly, died in 2007 in a car crash in Moscow. Sadly, apparently. Yeah, tragic. Around 3,000 mourners turned up for that one. He was very well known, very, very well known. And he was actually a really, really nice guy. I met him many times around the concourse at Highbury. And, yeah, top man. I wouldn't say he was a violent man, he knew how to direct things and whatever. But yeah, it's sad to lose the real ones. Sad to lose them because they're the proper. Mama Flossie, what a stream, Jez. You have to do another one. I don't know, Mama. I don't know if there's anything else I can talk about this. To be fair, I think I've drained it. I've enjoyed it. And I mean, I could have mentioned way more crews, but I only mentioned the ones that I've ever come across. And I will say, Mama, I will say this to you. Did come across the Gremlins once, and I'll tell you what, really nice people. Really nice people. They were a proper firm. Let's get it right. They were a proper firm. But yeah, I wouldn't say I felt uneasy with them, to be fair. But yeah, anyway, guys, going to wrap this up, ladies. Thanks for watching. Smash the likes up. Sub if you're new. Carl says personal stories and away days, deep dives would be a shout. Yeah, I think the trouble is, mate, it gets a bit boring, you know. You can go on and on about different journeys and things, and it comes to a point that I think people would get bored of it. But yeah, we'll have a think about that one, shall we? I'll tell you what. Here's an idea. We could do a stream about your experiences. Anybody out there about your away days or home days or what you've experienced and all that sort of bullshit. Steffi, good to see you. Steffi, haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you, my lovely. Yeah, I mean, why do anybody wants to join? I'll do a stream, get you guys on, and you can tell me your experiences. That'd be interesting. So yeah, let's see how we get on with that. Mama says I've got a few of them stories. Mama, I'm sure nobody would question you in a firm. Sure. One look from the mama and you're done. That's it. Good luck. Guy. Steffi just saw this, didn't get notifications, so we'll catch up. Yeah, Steffi. Yeah, I don't know what's going on sometimes, these bloody thingy bobs. Notifications. It's bloody YouTube, man. They're bloody useless. But anyway, guys, ladies, I'm going to get out of here now. And thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll catch you next time. Take care. And I am out.